Hello, everybody. It's great to be here with you today. Hello, Brewster. It's such an honor to be speaking with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
This is terrific. Thank you.
Brewster, you've been such a great inspiration for all of us in the Protocol Labs team and in the broader Filecoin and IPFS communities for many, many years. Your mission, the Archives mission, to provide universal access to all knowledge is really so deeply inspiring and exciting. It really gets us all hoping for a much better future. Can you tell us how you got to kind of arrive at that mission and kind of dedicating yourself and the archive to it?
Oh, sure. So as a geek in college, the question is, what are you going to do with these tools? Right? There are all these people going off and building bombs or making a lot of money. And but there was this idea floating around from the Memex or Ted Nelson of going and building a library that's new and different and able to be used in different ways. So I thought, okay, how hard could that be? Well, and he's still at it. But that was the idea is it's just taking a library and moving it into the digital world seemed like an obvious needed thing to do. So I said, all right, I'll do it.
And it's been an amazing journey. You managed to do something that tons of people thought was impossible, to digitize huge, vast collections of books and preserve them. Tons of parts of the web are completely gone, except for the archive. Every now and again, we see all over the web now a greater number of links that are just directly linking to the way back. So thank you so much for preserving all of that. And this year has been a huge year for the archive. Every year, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. What are some of the things this year that you're most proud of?
Well, the web collection, the Wayback Machine, is just getting used ever more in an environment where, well, things are being actively disappeared. Whether it's whole newspapers going and being forced out of business in Hungary, or people whitewashing their pasts as they become involved in politics. The Wayback Machine is being used more and more. So that's really thrilling. But there's some fun things you can do when all of it is in computers. When it's in a computer form, you can start to data mine it, right? That was the idea. It's like not just going and finding it easily so you don't have to go down to the library, but so we've been archiving television, a lot of it. Well, yeah, a lot of it. And taking all the words out and making it so then you can go and tell what stations are reporting on what differently. You can start to get a macro view, which is kind of cool. So it's not just peeking and poking. It's not, and it's beyond the web's idea of just making everybody a publisher and everybody able to write. But can you go and get a bigger view and not have to be, say, just at Google? And so that's some of the exciting things. Another is we wanted to go and try to make the web a place you could turn to and know where the information came from. So some provenance. And the web, I don't know about you, but I use Google all the time and Wikipedia. But sometimes you just don't know where, can you really trust this? I mean, and it's starting to get a little scary out there. There are people being paid to go and put crap out there. So we said, why don't we go and try to turn all of the footnotes, all the references in Wikipedia blue? Can we make it so you could click on any of those and find out where it came from? So if it was a book link, you click on it and it opens right to the right page. If it's journal literature, it's right there. Or if it's a broken link, it goes right into the Wayback. So we fixed about 10 million broken links in Wikipedia. We've put in 600 links straight into books, right into it. And now starting to move on journal literature. So the idea is to try to make the web, which we're now, in these COVID days, we're all having to be here all the time. Can we make this go?
That's really an amazing thing to work on, and it's been kind of a large thing for the internet to be kind of actually be able to jump from any kind of reference to either a book or a reference to material that's gone, to be able to right away know where that information came from, be able to check it for yourself, understand whether or not that's legitimate information, and so on. What are you worried about as we go into one of the hardest election cycles in the U.S. in a very long time? There's a lot of misinformation flowing around. How big do you think this problem is going to be over the next months?
I don't know about the next months, but it's looking pretty bad. I mean, it's been pretty bad for the last several years, and it's actually some of the exact things that the whole IPFS and Filecoin communities are really trying to work on, which is super exciting, and that's why I'm really happy that you guys have been making so much progress. But let's take some of the values that we really want to make sure are baked into the code. We've got privacy. We want that actually, by default. But we still also want freedom of expression. How do you go and do that? How do you have some idea of the integrity, provenance, truth of where do the things come from? We want that baked into the code itself, not just sort of some floating little nugget that's like, oh yeah, well, of course that's true. It's like, well, maybe not. How do you go and find out? And then we really want to make it so that we can have some fun out there, right? How do you have the next generation of cool things happen in the open world rather than some closed little video game widget over here that's owned and controlled by somebody? Can we keep this thing open, flowering, participatory? I like games where there are many winners. If you just have one winner, that's gonna bite you at some point. It may seem like, oh yeah, well, I'm a blank guy. It's like, and where blank is some brand. It's like, yeah, maybe we should really just double down and make open win.
Yeah, and it's a huge part of not only all the projects that we work on, but our shared mission in to make access to knowledge easy for everybody. What are some of the individual properties that you saw as really important in the early days of the internet that are now being eroded away, right? So you mentioned privacy as one of the key things, and being able to have a lot of winners on the internet and so on. What have you sort of seen, that was maybe true early on on the internet, but it's no longer true today, that you're trying to get back, or some of the things that you want to make sure are established for the future?
I think we've seen a collapsing of the open protocols. So we've seen the really terrific paper about protocols versus platforms, right? And we really want protocols. And protocols are much harder to get to work, and they're really hard to keep moving. Because think of email, just right, terrific system, but I don't know, it just feels spam-filled crap, right? It's not working very well. Or Usenet, or all these open systems that were protocol-based, and we're starting to go to Slack or these other things, and they're terrific, but really we want blank but decentralized, right? So we know what we want now out of some of these centralized players. Can we go and build decentralized versions of them? I want Google Docs, but decentralized. Slack, but decentralized. My wife bought a Tesla, which is completely awesome, but it is a connected device. I mean, that thing is really an iPad with wheels. And so it is controlled in a very centralized kind of way. Can we make a Tesla, but decentralized? Can we make an AWS, but decentralized? And that's some of where the whole IPFS thing comes in. But I think that's a good shower question for yourself. What's the tool that you really like? And then can you say blank, but decentralized? And then I think you'd end up with really good conversations and better products.
Yeah, and can you sort of unpack for us like what's at stake? This is it's very hard to build these kinds of systems in general. It's getting easier all the time, but it is a long journey for a lot of us working on them. What's at stake here? Walk us through maybe what you're worried about about in the internet in the long term, that if we don't kind of correct the course now and start establishing these platforms, what might be at stake?
The combination of the network effect, which tends to make winner takes all, but also the ability of software to be disseminated so quickly, and rapid globalization, it really means that there could be very few winners, right? There could be just the number of newspapers, right? It's just collapsed. Number of email providers collapsed. I think we could see a very few, very important, probably corporations that are going to have to kowtow to the governments that they're within, and they're going to have to, or they'll be kicked out. And we're seeing that kind of geopolitics going on. So it's not only the obsession about profit, the obsession about data collection as an asset for corporate ends, but also the influence within governments that are changing, right? We're seeing a path. Being an archivist, I think that we are bringing up a generation right now that doesn't actually know what the 20th century was, because it's on books that weren't digitized, or if they were digitized, they're behind paywalls, or there's some other way, and some you have to be an elite institution to be able to get at it. The magazines, the newspapers, how would you turn the Wayback Machine, right? We tried to make it so you could turn it back in time on the web to see how web pages look like. But how do you go back further than that into the 20th century? And right now we've got an overexpansion of copyright that is making it so that even the libraries that I grew up with are really not available now to those digital learners that turn to their screens. So we're bringing up a generation without knowledge of even what happened 100 years ago, 60 years ago. And some of those things we should be learning from. If you just take Black Lives Matters, let's go and understand what was going on during the civil rights movements, and how did that work, not work? What were the strategies? How did that all play out? What can we learn from positive and negatively a lot of those things, without seeing it all through a lens of, it's got remade into a movie now, because that's somebody else's view.
Yeah. Absolutely critical. And it's when we're talking about these large, the long arc of history, and we're talking about the internet, a platform where nation states and huge corporations are vying for interests. It can feel so daunting and so difficult to change the course of that platform and to create something different, to create something better. And so a lot of people sort of give up before they start. They just see that problem. They want to make the world better, but they just see that kind of a large scale problem, and they feel daunted by it and avoid it. That said, you've seen generations of really amazing changes on the internet happening, and you've seen how small things start small, and a small group of people will get together and start working on things, and that group will get larger, and a community will form, and eventually that'll manifest into something great. Can you maybe tell us about one or two examples like that you found particularly inspiring, where you saw kind of like a small group really managing to change the world?
Well, some of the ones that I've been involved in firsthand, I tested open source software. Open source software, the free and open source software of Richard Stallman. It was a little bit of a cockamamie idea at the time back at MIT when we were all together. And I thought I'd try it. So when we put out the WAIS system, Wide Area Information Servers, there was a system before the web that did the same kind of client server distribution. It was the first publishing system on the net. I went and tried it by going and putting one email onto one mailing list once to go and announce the free software version of this. And I just sort of watched it go boom, 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 boom. And people were trying it out, and they were downloading it, and they were that was back when you actually had to compile all your own code, right? And it's like nothing worked very well. But then, Finland joined on. Then we started getting, okay, now North Korea, actually maybe it wasn't, South Korea came online. And there were all these different people starting to interact around it. So yes, the free and open source software worked. Then there was the growth of the web. And one of the key things in the growth of the web was to make it so that people could make money out there. And I think that's something we screwed up, actually. We made it so very few people can make money, because it really was only the ad model. And ad models are winner takes all, and if you want to sell something on the web, you have to kind of go through an Amazon or an iTunes or something like that. And you have to buy into somebody else's world rather than recording your own MP3 and then selling it. So I think that's something we really screwed up. But there were some people that could figure out how to make money, and that helped build out the web. And all of these things, you sort of say, oh, well, they were just little flowers growing in a green field. No, there were enemies. There were people really trying to shut things down. There were alternatives that were much more closed. I'd say we're back, actually, when the old enemies in the 90s was AOL, right? How do we go and not make it be a closed garden? I'd say that sort of the Facebook world is that kind of world once again. So how do we go and build systems that are more decentralized? And so the Internet Archive tried building this decentralized web. And that's how I got to know you, Juan. And it's been inspiring to see the whole system grow.
Yeah, and it's been, really thank you so much for kicking off the movement and gathering large groups to come together and have a shared vision. We've seen an enormous amount of progress since 2015, 16, when the centralized web movement kicked off. Can you maybe reflect on some of the things that you've seen in the roadmap that are exciting, or maybe what do you see ahead as kind of the next steps?
Well, the idea of decentralized web is to make it so that not only can you just serve your own stuff, but you can help be part of an ecosystem. And the advent of the cryptography systems becoming available and legal, which you may not know, but they weren't legal before. JavaScript is just so powerful. Storage has gotten to be, and you can assume that things are online now. So these are now all the things we can go and build something so much better than we did before. And the decentralized web communities are coming about. There's IPFS is actually one of the big leaders. I mean, really big, actually leading the way in that. The Internet Archive tried building, based on those, can we build an Internet Archive, but decentralized? Can you do that? So we made dweb.archive.org, and it uses, if you click on dweb.archive.org and you look at your JavaScript console, it's just loading an enormous amount of web torrent and GUN and IPFS technologies to go and make it so that you can make an Internet Archive, but decentralized. So we're seeing still things, it's still early, but we're seeing mechanisms that are working, that are peer-to-peer, rather than really darn centralized. And some of the values are carrying forward, and some of them are just going for, I just want to make a lot of money. So we're, of course, the Bitcoin worlds and all the crypto worlds are doing well, but the idea of IPFS and Filecoin coming along as something that's trying to offer more than just a mechanism of store and transact money. Can we go and do something, frankly, a little more useful than that?
Yeah, so one of the key reasons for us building Filecoin was realizing that on the internet you need to create a market where people can provide computing resources, whether it's storage or computation or bandwidth, and you need to allow people to bring on those resources and be compensated for them. Like I think one of the difficulties of peer-to-peer was to really reach a scale and be able to compete with the cloud. You actually need to have, like you said, create a way for people to make money by giving these services, so that they can scale them and provide the level of reliability that actually is able to rival some of the centralized systems. And so we've been working pretty hard for that for a while, and we now have launched Filecoin. We've launched the mainnet. We now have the ability for people to come online and provide the storage and rent it out to other people in the world. And one of the big things that kind of fueled our work in the last years was to be able to create a large amount of capacity and large amount of supply of storage to be able to back up some of the world's most important and valuable information. We share your vision. We share the goal of trying to provide access to knowledge to everybody in the world. We worry about all kinds of things going missing. Open access journals that are suddenly disappear, or papers that you can't find anymore. All of those kinds of things not only are worrisome to us, but we want to help provide access to all of them. So now we're sitting here today with a huge network with, we've passed 600, I think we're closing in on 700 petabytes of capacity, and that's a 620 petabytes of capacity. It's a huge amount of storage that we can fit really truly an enormous collections there. the centralized clouds, are in the hundreds of petabytes and reaching exabytes. We're now finally like have something that we may be able to contend with, but we haven't really tested it out, right? Like we haven't really gotten to see large scale storage. We haven't seen the archival of data in the long term. We want to see, can we store a lot of information here? Is it going to be there in 6 months, in 12 months, and so on? So, as we go into this, what would you like us? How can we work together, and how can we help your mission and help the archive?
I want you guys to win. I want you guys to make a system that really, honest to God, like we can depend on. So I think of, libraries have always used the technology of the day, whether it's cuneiform back in Sumerian, Babylonian times, papyrus, paper did really well. Microfilm, okay, it's a little cheesier technology. Right now, the Internet Archive is built on hard drives. All right, and the real dominant players in hard drives right now are cloud storage. So maybe Filecoin and IPFS are kind of an open version. If that's the mainframe of storage, what's the PC of cloud storage, right? So is there an open PC version of cloud storage that can really break this thing open? And that's the hope. So what I want you guys to do is work. I want to go and test it out. I want to go and try it and put some things in, and then can we get them back out again in a year's time? That's what I want.
So Brewster and I were talking about this, about what we might be able to do together. And what we came up with was, what if we kick off a large call to the broader community to help us curate some data sets that we can assemble together and put on Filecoin and test out and archive for the longer term, get the network to participate in both the curation and selection of those data sets, but also the storage of those data sets long term, and then see where we are. Really try to amass a large amount of storage there. Try to archive really valuable and important data and material that we all care about. So together, we're excited to announce today that we're going to kick off this effort. We're calling it Filecoin Archives. And I'm going to tweet out in a moment a tweet saying, hey, please respond to my tweet with a suggestion for what data set you would like us to make part of this archive. Bonus points if it's a collection from the Internet Archive that the archive already has, because that makes it super easy for us to get it together and send it out. But hey, maybe there's some other important open access data that you want us to help back up that you think is really precious. So suggest a way. Let us know what you think we should store, and then we'll get it together, and then the archive will help us store it in a lot of machines around the world, in a lot of the Filecoin miners out there, and then we'll see kind of where we are in 6 months' time.
That's Juan, that's a really terrific thing, and thank you. This is a dream come true. So whether it's maybe we do a terabyte, and then we do a 10 terabyte, maybe 100 terabyte, and if you're up for it, we can do a petabyte collection. It helps if people think open access, so that we don't run into the rights issues right now. That would be a. But there's all sorts of great things that we can do, but would really like people to participate, so that if this happened, you'd care. Right? So what would be the things that you would want to make sure in these sort of different scales that we could go and try and just put it in and then see how it works, and then take it back out again and then surface things in this new and different way. The Internet Archive would be thrilled to be participating by adding in its most valuable open materials into this file store.
Awesome. Well, let's kick that off. I just sent out the tweet. I'll link it in a moment, and really excited for what people will suggest, and then we'll see in a while what how that goes and how we store it. In the meantime, let's turn over to Q&A from the audience. I have a few questions here. So let's see the first one. Getting direction and maps today involve centralized services. Are the protocols for map tiles, POIs, and routing that you recommend that we direct energy towards? Could this data be served by Filecoin or similar services?
Maps as in like geographical maps?
Yeah, I think so. So really that question is around data sets for maps.
Yeah, let's try this thing. I think it's kind of, boy, boy, is Google really convenient, right? Google Maps and all. But yeah, it's really kind of creepy that somebody knows where I am. So is there some way that we can go and do maps and directions in ways that are privacy preserving and still have a business model for people? So the Internet Archive collects a lot of maps that people, OpenStreetMaps, those sorts of worlds have been putting on us. Let's build that thing.
Great, awesome. The next question is, what is the current size estimate of new content per day that the internet produces? I guesstimate is okay. Should Filecoin concern itself with this scale eventually, or half of it, or what should we be targeting?
The Internet Archive just tries to collect the published works of humankind. So things that are kind of available, but not even all of it. So we collect about 50 terabytes a day. It's sort of the new sort of things that are coming in. And as Juan said, we're about 60 petabytes, a bit over these days. But we're not everything that's been on YouTube. A lot of that is kind of more or less private movies that people, just don't show up. So we're selective about, say, the YouTube based on what's cited in Twitter. If it's cited in Twitter, then we try to collect it. Use signals like that to figure out. But if you take the total number of disk drives that are being bought, which hopefully that there's bought for some real reason, I heard that Amazon counts things by exabytes. The head of Bill Bass, who's the head of AWS, he said, or one of the heads of AWS, he said, they've stopped counting petabytes, which is, I just love that kind of swagger. And it's like, geez. So they count exabytes. So I think you guys are in the right scale and what you're talking about towards being really impactful.
Great. And there's another question around, can we speak a bit about the issue of discoverability? How will web users access this material? I think the question is around the Filecoin Archives. Maybe I'll take a little bit of that and you add on to that, Brewster. So we'll first start off by collecting a lot of suggestions from people on Twitter. So I just sent out the tweet. You can check it out. Retweet it, please, to spread the word. But we would also, more importantly, give us your suggestions for important data sets. Once we collect a lot of those suggestions, we'll put them in a list and sort of curate the collections. We'll make sure that everything is open access. We'll make sure that we'll gather the data and put it together, and then start sending it out as Filecoin deals to the network. Once Filecoin miners pick those up and start storing them and so on, they'll now have the data. From there, anybody can retrieve that data by making a Filecoin retrieval deal. Now, the important part is we want that data to be useful and viewable in a bunch of websites and applications and so on. So we'll make sure that there's a front end or something like that where people can see, can dive through those archives. It really depends on the collection, right? So for example, if we get a bunch of map data, that's going to require viewing it in one way. If we get a lot of video archival stuff, that'll require viewing it a different way. So we don't know what we're going to get. It'll depend on the suggestions that we get. And once we put that together, we'll assemble some kind of front end for it so that we can see what's going on. Brewster, I don't know if you want to add on.
Yeah, so Internet Archive tried a dweb.archive.org. And one of the cool things that when Juan, I said, Juan, what I really want from is I want a JavaScript way of participating in IPFS. I wanted so that people could go and use it from their browser with no downloads, right? Could they go and not only read, but also write? And to the first DWeb gathering summit that was gathered at the Internet Archive, Juan and this fantastic guy, who was in Portugal that did the
David. Yeah, David, yes, he's probably watching.
Made a JavaScript version of IPFS. And so that's what we've woven into things so that we could make it so it's part of a website. And there are going to be other applications, other more app-based things, but let's make it work for the web as well. And I think that the IPFS group, you guys have been making it come true.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I mean, it's really a huge movement with a lot of people and other groups and other tech. I really want to share the limelight and the achievement with just you and the archive and all of the other groups that you've pulled together and you've kind of set off on this mission. We really wouldn't be here where we are today if it weren't for you pulling us together and forming a movement and kind of giving us the direction and the vision. And it's been super reinforcing for all of us to be able to count on you and the archive as kind of like this beacon of light saying, hey, no, just do the right thing, provide universal access to everybody for free. You can do that. You can actually collect all of these books. You can scan them. You can provide them to everybody. And that's just been so inspiring to all of us in the community, in this project and other projects over the years. And so really thank you, Brewster, and thank the archive and the amazing group of people that you've assembled that are so motivated and so inspired and so work hard every day to protect our access to information and so on.
Thank you, Juan, and congratulations on the launch, guys. I mean, there are a lot of people that have worked very, very hard to make this all come true. So congratulations, and now you know that this is day one, and it's still more work to go. But at least take a bit of a breath and say, we got here. So and congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. And one more congratulations is in order. Brewster, your Wikipedia page, I think, says that it's your birthday today. So happy birthday. Thank you for sharing it with us. This is you're giving us a birthday present of your presence. So thank you so much. Happy birthday from all of us in the community. Thank you for everything that you do. And you should always count on our project and our community to help you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.